Welcome to the WOW Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. Thanks again for tuning in. I interviewed Poulin today. Ian has a lot going on. He's actually an investor. He has a construction company, a full-time job with Volkswagen, and he's a licensed realtor. Recently got his license, actually. So we talked a bit about managing all these things that he's got going on, how he's able to run a construction company, the systems that are involved in order to make the most of his time, and then working around his full-time job, making sure that he also stays fit and doing all these things. So I think for anyone out there who has a full-time job and is interested in figuring out how they can get more involved in investing, this is going to be a good one for you. We touched on some of his projects. He's working on a severance and an infill development, and then he's done a ton of duplex conversions and triplex conversions. So hope you'll enjoy the episode. Make sure to leave us a review on the Apple Podcasts platform. And if you are interested in reading some reports that we've got one that discusses why you shouldn't buy rental properties in Burlington or Oakville. We run through some numbers and compare in comparison to other cities. All you have to do is go to welloff.ca/podcast, and you can download all the reports for free. There you go. If you want to connect with me, again, all you have to do is go to welloff.ca. There's a contact page there. I'm happy to discuss with you some of the opportunities we have in the Niagara region. Well, in St. Catharines, we've got some off-market stuff that you might be interested in. Make sure to reach out in that situation. Enjoy the episode. All right, everyone. I'm here with Poulin. Ian came down from Niagara today. He told me he made the best of this trip and was able to go to Rona and pick up some stuff. So that's great. Ian, for those that don't know, he's got a lot going on. He's got a full-time job, construction company, a realtor. He's got his own rentals going on. So thank you for coming by today, Ian.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I like to stay busy and make use of that trip.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about your childhood, where you grew up, one or two things you remember.
Sure. Let's jump back. Born and raised in Niagara, so Niagara region, Niagara Falls. Went to school there, just typical normal stuff. Always loved business. Always liked being busy and doing something. And went through so my last name is Poulin, you pronounced it really well, and went through French school there. And then elementary is not too significant for most people, but went to University of Brock and then into the European Business School in Germany. So I did a dual degree program, studied business, a little bit of finance, and that's kind of my background in terms of where I'm from, what I'm about.
What made you want to go to Germany to study?
It wasn't necessarily that I had chosen Germany. I knew I wanted to study abroad or do something like living abroad for a little bit. And Germany was a program that Brock had, and it was 2.5 years at Brock, a year and a half in Germany. And it was business, and it was suitable for me, and it seemed like a good time. So we went and had fun.
Awesome. That's really cool. I love hearing people's stories when they go abroad to study. I was always a little bit jealous of people who did that, because I just went to I went to a school in Mississauga. I stayed close to home, never got the experience living abroad. But anyway, how did you get involved in real estate? Because I was doing a little bit of research. I saw that you bought your first rental on your graduation day.
That's right. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Funny. That was maybe 5 years ago. So 2017 is when I graduated, and I was in Germany kind of figuring out what do I want to do when I get home, or do I want to stay in Europe? I had a job offer in England to run sort of European office for some automotive marketing company. And I decided it was raining a lot in England. I didn't really want to deal with that. The pay wasn't as great as I wanted. I thought I could do better. And ultimately I decided if I came home, I love doing marketing, real estate, sales, entrepreneurship, finance, all these different things, right? Operations, design. And so I thought how can I do something with a little bit of everything? And it kind of came to light. I was well, real estate would do some of that. And so I got back in, I think, July or August of 2017 and started looking for a place that I could dip my feet into. And there's a place nearby my parents, and I ran the numbers several times, right? There's a big investment, first one. It's kind of that scary feeling of is it going to work? Is it not? So I had, if I flipped it, if I rented it myself, rented it to somebody full family or whatever, if I lived in it, house hacked, all that kind of stuff. So ultimately I decided I would house hack it, and that's where I got started. And that was 2017. And getting into real estate at that time, I was just, I didn't think I was going to get my real estate license. and it's still not like a huge aspect of my like career at this point, but do like 10 deals a year kind of thing. Stay a little busy with that. And yeah, I, remodeled that house, had help from my parents. Like my dad, I went skiing one weekend and he did the floors and stuff like that, which was awesome because I would have had to come back and do it. But I did a lot of the work myself, and then had my uncle help out and paid him to do some of the stuff. He actually drove up from Ohio, like on weekends kind of thing. So I would just pay him. Yeah,
from Ohio.
Yeah, it's like 3 hours or so. But it was fun. We had a good time doing it, and that's when I converted the basement kind of thing. And yeah, it's just piece by piece, getting started and seeing like opportunity or how I wanted to do something. That's really how it starts to get into real estate.
Awesome. And then I think you've also got a full-time job. You work for Volkswagen.
Yep.
How are you able to manage doing that? Because you've got so many different things going on. How are you doing 10 transactions a year, like you said, and then working at Volkswagen and running a construction company at the same time?
It's a fair question. I get it often. The answer is organization. Stay pretty organized. It's kind of an answer of like, I also don't know. It's just when you pull your head up and like you slow down, you take your foot off the gas, then you can't get it all done. But my foot's usually on the gas all the time. And I had a buddy, we were talking the one day and I was asking him the same question, and he's like, I just leave everything to the last minute because then you only can do it. Like you give the time to something that you have. So let's say you have an hour to do a task, you're going to get it done, right? It has to get done. But for me, really, it's systems. I have a business partner in the construction business, and I had started it kind of previously prior to him, but working together, like we can get a lot more done. And yeah, like Google Spreadsheets, everything's in my Google Drive, super organized, systematizing things. So we do a lot of conversion projects, and keeping things in a certain system the same way each time really helps. The process is similar. There's always a couple of variables, but we try and just standardize it, which helps. My day job, working from an office, I have, a computer, my cell phone and stuff like that, but it's a very demanding job, being a business manager or finance manager for a dealership. And, I enjoy what I do. So I work long hours. I work all the time, but it doesn't really feel like work. It's enjoyable. So it's good.
So tell us a little bit about your construction business. What do you said you focus on conversions quite a bit. You have a partner. What's your role in the company? And did you start this company when you bought your first rental, or like when did that start?
Sure. So the way it got started, so I had done my own, so like I mentioned, I had house hacked my place. And after that, then I had to wait like 2 years because I'm in a commission role. So my income's not like a salary where the banks will just say, here's a mortgage. And so anyways, I waited and worked really hard to just get my income up. And then I was able to get financing for another place. And so from having bought the first place, it's kind of a longer story, but from having bought that first place, connecting with a realtor and somebody through Kijiji, and a strange story, I ended up finding a place off market at that time, and put every last dollar I kind of had into that place, and I did the conversion. So I worked on it again myself. I hired out some people. You learn a lot of lessons. Did it myself, and the place turned out pretty nice. And so somebody later had asked me to do a project for them on the next one that they would have coming up, kind of thing. And I thought, maybe it's just like an offer, a generous offer or whatnot. And then that person like acquired a property and they really wanted me to do it. And so we worked together to get that done. And then I did a couple of other conversions that year on my own. So I think that was 2020. It was right when the pandemic hit, actually. And I got laid off from my job, and we had a month, 2 months, 3 months or so, whatever it was. And so at that time, it was a triplex conversion that I started essentially the company with. And from there, just, more people had asked me to do it. And I tried to create those repeatable systems. And then 2020, end of that, Bob and I partnered up. And then 2021, we did, I don't even know the exact number, but probably over a dozen conversions. And we're doing another 10, 12 right now.
Where are you doing these conversions? Are you focused in a specific area in Niagara, or are you all over Niagara, Hamilton?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the company name is Niagara Investment Contracting. And so we only do Niagara. It's in the name, I guess, right? But Welland, Port Colborne, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, like those are our core markets. Welland's been a great market. I own property there, and it's nice to work with because you can really maximize like the use of a space, a house. Whereas St. Catharines is more challenging in the sense of what you can put into a basement, or even Niagara Falls. You got to learn to work with it and really maximize the space that you have in those cities. Whereas in a city like Welland, you can really get like a full basement out of a bungalow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Welland's been a pretty awesome place.
Yeah, I think it's pretty hot.
It's been so good for so many different reasons. The people are so, like the building department, everybody's so much easier to work with, I find, than in other places. So a lot of investors are flocking to those areas. So, okay, so you're focusing in Niagara. First of all, how did you get people to work with you? How are you finding your clients? You kind of started off fresh and you did a bunch of conversions in 2020 and 2021. How did that happen?
So it started because I did my own first, and somebody saw what I did and they liked that, and they, I guess, saw an opportunity for me to make sure that I could make that happen for them as well. And after that, it was more referral, word of mouth. Like, we really don't do a lot of marketing, keep it kind of low key, just referrals from clients. And, we've been plenty busy enough. With all of that, it's about helping people like accomplish what they want to do, right? So they want to make something a duplex or a triplex, right? And in terms of dealing with a contractor, like, I won't physically be on the tools or anything like that. Like, I did some of that work for my first projects and stuff, but you can't when you're running 10, 12 sites, right? There's not enough time in the day to do that. Plus, I have a full-time career in other business, right? So you asked how clients started working with us. On the other side of that's how do trades work with us too, right? So I've been through different people and we know who we want to work with. And if somebody wants to manage their own project, right, I did it. People can, but it's a lot of work. And that's why people hire us to make sure that we get it done for them. And so in terms of clients working with us, I think it's just our reputation and how we take care of the places. Bob and I, like, we each have our own investment properties and stuff. So we understand what it's like to be the investor, kind of investor turned contractor. And so we know that it's important to communicate with people, deliver a product or a finished result that you're proud of, that is safe, that tenants would like, all that kind of stuff. And so we just look at these places as like kind of like our own, right? So we want to make sure that we would do it the way that we would. And we really try and make sure that we convey that to our clients and say, like, we would consider doing it this way. And there's a lot of trust that clients put with us, right? Like, they're spending a lot of money to do this. And so we want to respect that.
Well, if you have all these things going on right now, why didn't you just say to yourself, I'm just going to focus on construction, or just focus on real estate, or just focus on working with Volkswagen? Why is it that, what makes you want to do all these things at once?
It's a good question. So at some point, obviously I'll leave my career, right? Run my own business is going to be, I enjoy it, for yourself. There's a little bit more, there's more to it that way. But I've asked myself that question before, because I'm like, why do you do it all? And I think the answer is because I can. And so with the systems in place, like, it really works out well. Obviously having a job helps with mortgage qualifications as well. But with a business and savings and stuff, you can still get, B lenders or whatever you need to. And when you show that track record of, like, payment and deals and stuff like that, it should be all right. But there's like always chapters in life. And so, writing a chapter right now where I write 3 things and do it all. And that chapter will change at some point in time, but I don't know exactly when. But yeah, I can do it all with the systems that are in place. And so that's really helpful. Like, if I didn't have all the systems in place, we wouldn't be able to. So
if you had a friend or family member, like a younger person, that was asking you for advice, would you tell them to do what you're doing now, or would you tell them not to stay away from that and kind of just pick one thing and do it?
I think I'm a conservative person, right? So I hedge my bets, right? If one doesn't work out, well, you have 2 others to work with. They've all been good. They've all worked out. But the advice I'd give somebody is, you can build something quicker if you just do one thing, and you got to bet on yourself if you think you're doing that. I was already working, and so the job was already there in place, and I just stacked on top. And so I think that's why, I have all 3. I've just layered on top of each. But if somebody was starting, it would be based on what their goal is. So if they want to go fast and far, like, just do one thing and work with others. Like, find really good talent. Talent's like the number one thing. You got to find people that can do stuff that, like, they can problem solve. And then if they were a little uncertain about kind of what they want to do and they want to feel things out, which is pretty common. Like, a lot of people don't know what they want to do. And I didn't at a certain point. And I'd say I fell into this, but I just took one step at a time to feel out what I liked, what I didn't like, and then did more of the things I liked and less of the things I don't like. And so for that person who's getting started, or like that younger person, if they work a job and they can find some form of like side project, side hustle, it's nice to have it project based, because it's like a start and an end. I would recommend, like, if you do something consistently over a long period of time, they'll be able to get those results. But sometimes if they just do a little bit of effort and that's all they're doing, and they're doing that for a long time, that gets pretty tiring. So they might give up. But it's either go fast and far, like quick with one thing, or start to build something up so that you have like contingencies and backups, because you never know what can happen, right? And when you're doing multiple things, you catch different opportunities, because like I meet people through work. I get trade referrals from my dad. So my dad works for like Chrysler and Dodge and stuff. And so like if he's got, contractors or people that we can work with, then I'm always kind of connecting with people.
That actually leads me to the next question, which was, how are you able to find good people? Because you said it's really important to hire good people or to partner with good people. Mm-hmm. How are you finding these tradespeople for your construction company?
So putting in time and testing things out. That's one of the answers. Is you got to work with people and you got to see how they can perform. And you go through stuff and you have crazy situations and you deal with it and you move on. And it's super stressful at times, but the resiliency and the ability to figure things out, like everything is figure outable, is I can't remember who said that, but it's a good quote. And when you start to get a feel for people, right? You have to be able to read people and understand them too. There's certain things that you can tell about, let's say contractors, for example, like I don't know, like you want to be somewhat well put together, like a little rougher is not a problem, but if they're completely questionable, you know where you're getting, right? And so, if you smell alcohol in somebody's breath, like that's it's a pretty telltale sign, like you're not showing up for my job, right? Like there's no chance.
Yeah.
But then I think sometimes like, I think a lot of people have been there where they're like, okay, I need to get it done. I don't know anybody else I can get to do it. And so they let that slide, right?
That was an important thing you mentioned about setting standards for your site and making sure it's clean and whatever else. That's a problem that I've been running into the last little bit, where contractors, like the plumber, will come in and then just leave all the pipes on site or like on the front lawn or whatever. And I try to tell him, you can't do that or whatever, but it doesn't. The problem just persists. And then the other contractors are like, oh, okay, well, the plumber is leaving stuff, so I'll just leave it. And now you have a bunch of garbage on site. So how are you able to set those standards?
So the way we did it is, and it's always a work in progress, so don't think we're perfect, but the way to make it better is when you work with people consistently, then you can start to hold them accountable for that, like a one-off kind of thing. Let's say your plumber's on site, you might not be able to make it perfect each time. But really the thing is, so we want to have a dumpster on site. If there's a dumpster on site and your trash is still there, you're going back to clean it up, or like the invoice doesn't get paid yet, or you're buying lunch, or you're paying for, somebody to come and clean up that trash, right? If we have to do it, but you're paid, why are we doing it? Right? And it's just logic. So I try and use logic a lot to think, does this make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, then why are we doing it? We'll also periodically have like our guys clean up just sites across the board just to tidy everything up, because there's a lot of construction work and like they're intense. There's a lot of trash. And we'll just take it to the dump, right? Or throw it in the dumpsters that we have. With other trades, it's like send us pictures when it's done, right? Because we don't need to go check every single site once they're done. They know what we do. It's repeatable, that kind of thing. And again, so it's our guys just making sure that they understand, right? Communicate. We told you to do it. Why didn't you do it? Well, you can't just not do what we ask you to do, right? We're paying you, right? Same way that our clients are paying us, they're expecting this. And so it's holding people accountable. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy that, you have to do this with grown men and women and adults and stuff like that, but that's it. So that's how it goes.
Yeah. Because everybody's like, could be lazy if you let them, right? And
absolutely.
They're like, oh, whatever. The other trades are doing it, I'm going to do it too. And
if you let them slack, it's kind of like, it's just human nature, right? Like in a certain way, like you kind of do as little to get by as possible, but it's definitely not my motto. I'll do more to get ahead, but certain people will just do, enough or just, be as lazy as they could be. Our trades are pretty good. Like they're great guys and girls that work with us. But if you give somebody that space to like just leave the trash, for example, then they might take it and use it. So how you do anything is kind of how you do everything. And so we try to make sure that they understand like this is important. And if you leave something, the next person will as well. And then we have a mess to deal with and we don't want to.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's cool. And then your trades, are you mostly finding them by word of mouth referral, or are you finding them on Kijiji or some other way?
Yeah, so it's everywhere that I can, right? It's, again, like I said, find that talent, like who can do work and who's available, who's willing to, who can work with our standards, that kind of stuff. We've been through different people. Things change. People become more available, less available. Pricing changes, different factors. And so really with as many sites as we do, we always have like people available because we have so many going, and we, between plumbers and electricians, HVAC, like it's a lot of people, and you try and just assign, the job to the people that work with you best, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about the order? Let's say you're doing a full reno, either a full house or like a unit, but you're removing all the drywall and then doing the plumbing and the electrical and everything. Can you walk us through the order of how you do things to be as efficient as possible?
Sure. I have a Google spreadsheet where I've created, each step kind of the process. We use, a lot of like digital tools to kind of keep track of this stuff. But first thing is going to be like a site visit. This is at the quoting stage too. So like we're going to visit with the client, obviously work on securing the opportunity to work for the client. Then we'll work on demo, just scoping everything out, making sure that we identify some of our fire separations, where we're going to be, putting, let's say, drywall in the ceiling joist to run hood ranges or bathroom fans, those kind of things in basements in particular. We'll then work on framing. We'll get everything framed up. Then we get into plumbing, HVAC. We like to do plumbing and HVAC kind of first, just because they take up the bulk of space in joists and cavities. And then we'll get into wiring, electrical, that kind of stuff, because the wires can go kind of anywhere. They can work around the larger space. And then after that, just again, we check up on like each stage kind of thing and make sure that's cleaned up and tidied up. We haven't missed anything. And then we're going to get into like insulation, fire separations, fire stoppings. And then we'll get into like the resilient channel, drywall. And there's inspections at different stages, right, for each of those kind of things. But then once we're into the drywall, it's really nice to see everything closed up. But it takes a lot of time to get like, concrete out of the way or just the site ready with all the mechanical systems and move everything. And I kind of see it as like three phases. So like that pre-demo or like that demo phase. Then there's like the rough in, then there's like completion. And so post drywall, it's, paint, flooring, trim. And you kind of adapt based on what we have for availability and time, whether we need to get our flooring guys in or paint first and then cover up the floors. Like you just work with it, right? Coming from a corporate world or like a university world where everything is, calendar based and white collar and just everything can be planned and organized really nicely, to start the construction company was a little tougher because it's so dynamic. There's so many moving parts. And I think clients realize that when they try and do the projects themselves first, and then they understand why people hire general contractors, right? Because I'm the kind of person that will figure something out or do it on my own because I can. But then there's just so much work involved that people have to get, a couple of quotes. Is it the right pricing that I'm getting from this plumber? And then they have to do that for the plumber, the drywall, the electrician, the framer. They got to source materials. If something's missing, it's just so much work that people don't realize until they do a project and go, holy cow, I need somebody. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. And it's true. It could be overwhelming for the average person. And there is a lot that goes into it. So I appreciate that you're sharing that. You also mentioned that there were tools that you use, electronic tools, technology, whatever. Can you share you said Google Spreadsheets. Is there anything else that you use to make sure you're organized and you've got systems in place?
Absolutely. So Google's great for us. Like the G Suite, we got, Gmail, everything just works well together on that. I save all the projects in the drive, so each one has its own folder. We'll save all the inspection sheets so that we can provide that to the client at the end of the project so they can see all the inspections are passed and completed. We'll work with a tool called Asana. It's a project management software, and it's great because I've built a template for the projects where there's each individual phase and all the things that are kind of typical or standard. And then if one of the items, like one of the tasks, doesn't fit in terms of the project that we're doing, then we'll just delete that task so we don't have it on there. And then when it's completed, we mark it off, or we put notes so we can comment back and forth. Those are for the guys that work with us most often. Or like not the large subtrades like an HVAC contractor or plumbing, like those guys will do their own thing. It's a pretty clear scope of work. But for all like those little loose ends, that's all built into our software that we've set up. And then WhatsApp's great. Work with all our trades. We got that set up. So Bob and I being involved together, we really help support each other and make sure that we're up to date on everything. And as opposed to playing telephone, WhatsApp, everybody communicates through that channel. Try and keep it clear that way. And that's primarily it.
So on Asana, who's reviewing that? Is that your contractor on site that you're having them fill out checklists and whatever else, or is that just for you and Bob to review?
It's a bit of both. So basically we would review it, maybe add some notes, some details, some specs that we want to make sure that they hit. And then they can also comment back and say, we're going to need this material for the next day or something like that. It's pretty dynamic.
Cool. Yeah, that's really good. So Google Spreadsheets, you've got folders that are all set up so that you can constantly review and whatever else. Asana, you've got templates set up in there. You also use WhatsApp. So these are some of the tools that you use to make sure that you've got your systems in place and that you're able to do a full-time job and run a construction company.
That's right.
How are you? So at what point do you fit in showings and listings and all this other stuff on the realtor side?
Yeah. So most of the clients that I work with will be investor clients. And so I can kind of go and check out a place. And again, WhatsApp, videos, like text messages to show somebody a place. I know what's going to work, right? So as the contractor and the realtor, you kind of know the budget. You know what's possible. You know by law. You know when you've done like, I don't know, at least done 20 conversions, then you know what you're getting into, right? And so I think sometimes it's, let's say you were just a realtor and you didn't know the construction costs or what the kind of budgets are roughly. Sometimes you try and make those numbers work and the renovation budget might be, $80,000. Well, it's going to be more than that. Right. And so I think clients enjoy working with somebody who knows, both ends of the costs, because then it's got to be realistic, right? You can't say, oh, it's going to be 50 grand and then show up and it's 150, right? So you got to be genuine in what you're estimating. Fitting those things in early mornings, late nights. Some properties are vacant, some aren't. Fitting them in on Sundays and Fridays, my days off. My schedule is a little different with Volkswagen. So on Wednesdays, I'll start at like 11 a.m. But if I got to go out and do something early in the morning, you just got to fit it in. You got to be adaptable. It's just figure outable. Some way it's going to get done, right?
Yeah, you just make sure you're organized. You work around your schedule. So that's cool that you're able to do all that. Yeah, you're doing a ton of different things. You've got a severance as well that you mentioned earlier before we started recording. You're working on a severance and an infill as well. So can you tell us a little bit about what you have going on there?
Yeah. So in the same way that I did my own duplex conversion first, I like to do stuff for myself first just to make sure that, I'm competent enough and I can handle it and everything that way. Obviously, I believe myself that I can, but I wouldn't risk doing something for a client that I haven't done for myself first, kind of one of my rules. And so at this point, I'm building a house, so it's going to be for myself. But the project there, it's a duplex on the front lot, and the gentleman severed the back end of it, and it's kind of on a corner. So you can imagine how you can get that backyard as another property. And so that's a new project, a new venture to build and go through that full process. There's different challenges, but there's also easier things to do. Like there's nothing in your way. You're just building what you need to. Whereas with remodeling, everything's in your way basically, right? So that's one project on the go. And then we purchased a double wide lot, and it's got a house on that. So we're going to duplex that. It's in process now. And the goal is to sever the other half of the lot and put up a triplex or whatever we can to maximize that space. And that'll be an infill severance.
At what point are you at with that infill development?
So the one that's being built is at the footing stage. So we're dealing with some soil stuff. We got to check on some things like that, but that's the nature of it. You got to deal with what comes up. And then on the severance side, we've gutted the one property, like the house on the property. And then the lot, basically, it should be pretty straightforward to get the severance as far as we understand. Obviously, we're going to have to work with a couple of minor variances just because the lot, we're going to maximize the use of that space, so parking and setbacks and stuff. With that being said, though, City of Welland, we've already been through pre-consult meeting, and it seems like it's favorable, so they're pretty well good with it. There's a couple things we'll have to do. I'm sure there's things that will come up, but it seems like it's gonna work all right.
Awesome.
Which is nice because you never know, right? There's so many variables to these things, but when you can secure something and it's not like you've got to jump through 100 hoops, maybe a couple, it's not so bad.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah, and like we said before, Welland is a pretty good place to do that kind of stuff. So it's great for you. Do you feel like there's anything we haven't covered? Anything that's important to touch on?
Not really. Touched on a whole bunch of stuff. Again, everything's figure outable. People can do these kinds of things on their own, and you just got to start. Especially when I work with new clients, I try to remember the feeling of doing my first place and everything is a concern. So you're worried about every factor, right? There's a little bit of water, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? And because I move fast, I move through a lot of projects and I move quick just because I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I try and slow it down and understand the concerns of newer investors because, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on something. They want to make sure it's going to work, right? And so when I was doing my first project or, the first duplex and was putting, literally when I was signing for it, I had to save more money and close in a couple of months to make that down payment. And so those fears or those concerns and stuff, if you work with the right people, it's something that they know how to overcome and deal with. And having that confidence definitely helps, because then you can do more deals and get things done. But anything else that we should cover?
I don't think so. Maybe the last thing is, so if somebody's looking to invest with you, like to buy a rental through you, or if they're looking for some construction work that they need help with, what's the best way to contact you?
Through email or through my website. Some of those things are being worked on, but again, we don't do a ton of marketing. I'm pretty low key, and the website that's up is probably outdated, but it's ianpoulin.com. We've got a website coming built by NIC, so Niagara Investment Contracting, built by nic.com or .ca, and email, but just social media is a good place to reach out to. And yeah, if there's capacity, we'll try and work with people and help them accomplish what they're looking to accomplish.
Awesome. Ian, thank you for coming by today. I appreciate you driving down here, and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember, our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.